Say hello.
Thank you, Maureen.
You're welcome.
Sonia's here now too. Did they hear me? Did they acknowledge? Okay. Not in a silent mood.
Hello, everybody.
Hello.
So it looks like we have almost everyone, certainly a quorum. Have we heard from Vice Chair about today? Okay, I didn't think so. All right, we'll call the meeting to order. And will you please take roll, Ms. Willis?
I will. Chair Green,
Present?
Vice Chair Watson, absent. Member Strom,
Present.
Member Emil Hayes,
Present.
Member Chisholm.
Present.
We're missing Edie as well, Member Hughes. She's absent, and alternate member Redovit.
Present.
Thank you. So you have a quorum, 2 members are absent.
Okay, thank you. And so everyone knows, Vice Chair Watson did reach out after the last meeting and said he had a health issue that prevented him from being able to be in the last 2. I don't know if that's still ongoing, but that's what's been going on. And does anyone have a motion to approve our minutes from the 11/16 meeting?
So moved.
Thank you, Member Chisholm. And then I'll take that as a second, Member Strom. Ms. Willis, will you please take the vote on that?
Chair Green,
Yay.
Member Chisholm,
Yay.
Member Emil Haynes,
Yay.
Member Strom,
Yay.
Member Redovit.
Yay.
It's unanimous. Thank you.
Thank you. This is the point where we would open our hearing to the public. I don't see any attendees. Everyone is currently a panelist who's connected, so there's no one present to address us from the public, so we'll move on. As I wrote you all, Code Manager Lewis reached out and was unfortunately his schedule prevented him from being able to join us tonight. And that's why I switched it to being Zoom tonight and then in person next time, so he could be a part of it. And then it kind of worked out well since the weather. Wasn't even planning for that, but I do look forward to meeting in person next time, and we'll have Code Manager Lewis with us at that time. Let's move on to Councilmember Russell. Do you have anything for us?
Yes, I do have a report. The on January 3rd, when we came back, there was on the agenda, a Council Bill 3, which was to approve a bill for an ordinance amending various sections of the Public Offense Code to mirror changes in state law and ensure compliance. There was an amendment was approved, and it passed with one approved amendment. There are this ordinance amended sections that I believe this committee is responsible for: 7-6A-5, 7-6B-10, 7-6C1, 7-6C2, 7-6C3, 7-6D1, 7-6D10, and 7-6D12. And this will probably come forward for second reading on the council meeting on February, the first meeting in February. So we have a couple weeks. I actually think it would be a good idea for maybe you all to look at that if you had time and just weigh in on if you have anything that you would like me to consider. It's just helpful to have other eyes on it. So the amendment that got passed, and if you go back and watch the January 3rd meeting under the discussion on Council Bill 3, you will see there was quite a bit of discussion. I brought forward a lot of things, and only one thing got amended. But anyway, if you all would look at that, that would be great. We
And
have
that was-
Board Commission.
Sorry,
Pardon
that
me?
was, you said the January 3rd?
Yes, that was
Council meeting?
January 3rd. Yes.
Was that a full meeting or a study session?
It was a full meeting. That
Okay.
was not, it was on the consent agenda item, so it would be 9B2 on the consent agenda item. And it was pretty lengthy. There's a lot of stuff in there. I think that it would be great if you all would look at that. The other thing is we did Board and Commission interviews on the 9th, which I believe was last week. And so there, I believe there's one opening on Code Enforcement Advisory Committee. At this point, the person that council suggested go in there, that person wasn't interested. I mean, he actually applied for something else, and then council a lot of times will ask people if they want to serve in another area. But then staff always calls to make sure, well, that person wasn't interested. There is a possibility on January, no, this will be February 6th also. We're doing Board and Commission appointments, and so council will discuss it at that point. So we may get another member, but I'm not sure that we will.
Okay.
Other than that, I mean, things are just slowly getting back to normal. Last night we had a meeting. The only thing on the schedule was a public hearing for the Sam's Automotive. The public hearing got postponed. Council had to vote on it because it had already been posted by the time the developer wanted to withdraw and asked for more time. So there wasn't a very long meeting last night, but there will be on the first one in February. So that's all for my update for now.
Okay. Was there anything that in particular that stood out to you in the Council Bill 3? You said Agenda 9B2 that you said there's a bunch of different things that potentially
There were a bunch of things that troubled me.
Okay.
And I'm going to go back and review it before the next meeting to see if there's, the one thing that I thought was egregious, it had put in there, and council agreed with the amendment that false reporting of animal cruelty was not a crime. I don't remember exactly how it was worded, but that did get taken out.
Wow. Okay. Sounds reasonable. Okay. I'll review that, and probably a good idea for all of us too. And if anyone has any thoughts on that, send them to me and Ms. Willis, and then, then they can, if there's any, specific points or anything anyone wants to discuss, then we can get that into our agenda for next time. Thank you, Councilmember Russell.
Thank you.
Ms. Willis?
Yes, in response to Council Member Russell's statement about the appointments of new board members, that is going to be on the 23rd of January.
Okay.
And the Council Bill number 3 is scheduled for second hearing on February 3rd. Or February 6th, I'm sorry.
Right, I don't, on January 23rd, it's a study session, so I don't think that they can appoint them.
Well, but that's what it shows on iCompass.
Really?
Yeah, let me pull it back up. Hold on.
Okay, that's fine. I'm not questioning you. It probably is, but,
Yeah, it is.
and is it on, what is it under?
It's under appoint boards and, members to boards and committees. On
Okay,
January
on the-
23rd.
Okay. I don't think that's right. Let me, I believe that it's there, but it's not a regular meeting, so, okay. I appreciate that.
You bet.
Yeah, my appointments have always happened on regular meetings. Not
Because
during
I
study
think
session.
it's on there because February 6th has so many items on it that it's gonna be a very long meeting. And if you guys want to review Council Bill 3, I can send it to you all,
Okay.
but you're gonna have to call a special meeting in order to have it heard before February, or to review it as a body before February 6th.
And so that when you say that second hearing is February 6th, does that mean that they vote it finally then as well?
That's correct.
Yes, yes, that is correct.
Okay, yeah, Ms. Willis, will you please send it to all of us? And then if anyone
And
sees
then
anything,
I would suggest you individually send your comments to Councilmember Russell.
okay. Yeah, please send us the changes. And then if anybody has any,
I don't have any, the changes were incorporated into the document and they're not outlined like with strikeout or anything. They were incorporated into the document. So Council Bill 3 is sitting up for appointment or for approval on February 6th. And that document is the one that I can send to you all.
Right,
Okay.
and there was only one change in that, which that is the one that I just told you. And so if it's not in there, then, that's fine, but especially.
It's in there.
Yeah, okay. The change?
Yeah, because City Attorney Niles made the change the night of the meeting.
Oh, yes, she is very disciplined about doing that. So
Right. So
I
yeah,
appreciate that.
you bet.
Thank you.
okay. And then just to finish that thought, Ms. Willis will send that to us. Please, everyone review. And if you have any concerns or thoughts, you can certainly share them directly with Councilmember Russell. You can send them to me. If you think it's something that's worth us having a special meeting in between for us to discuss it, let me know that. I'll be looking at it myself and see if I think there's anything important that we should discuss and potentially share thoughts with City Council before that second hearing when they vote on it. But everyone, I would request that you please take a look at it.
Thank you.
Thank you. And then, so now we've got our communications subcommittee update. Vice Chair Watson's not here, but I know member Redovid, you contacted them, right? Did they end up giving you any info?
Yeah, we just came in. I sent them like 5 emails and they apologized for not getting back and just sent a new contact, I think like 2 or 3 days ago. So I'll reach out this week to now we have the updated contact.
Okay, cool. Thanks for staying on top of that. And
Yeah, no problem.
appreciate that. And then, all right, did you have any info yet? It's pretty much just you got the contact and Okay,
Yeah, it was, and there was no reply since we brought it up, so I was just emailing them every like 3 weeks, and so I just got the contact, and it's someone at the police department.
okay, cool. Well, we'll see what you find out once you get connected with them, but thanks. Thank
Yeah,
you.
so, I believe they've not done it before. They're like an all new contact.
Okay, makes sense then. And then, so our new business, we've got discuss our priorities. And so let's discuss. It looks like this document this is the state we left it in from when we went over this in 2022. Is that right, Ms. Willis? Because I think we've completed the
That
trees
is correct.
part.
This document is your priorities for 2022.
Yeah, that's what I thought. And as far as I'm aware, there's nothing left for us to do on the trees. We've completed that, right?
Correct.
And dangerous dog code, we've completed everything that we've been able to, since the city is currently working on additional changes, and then code manager Lewis will bring that back to us once they're ready with any completion on that. That's my impression on that. Please correct me if I'm wrong on anything, Ms. Willis. And then our priorities, we can, this is a chance for all of us to bring up anything that matters. We can adjust our priorities as to, what we think, what input we may have had from citizens. We're open to input anywhere. Go ahead, member Emma Hines, right? Emma Hines?
Hines, yeah, thanks.
Yeah.
Happened to be the day that I got a notification from Nextdoor of a discussion that was happening on there about trash cans being set out too far in the street, trash left around it, trash carriers weren't picking up everything, so the trash was left out there. One thing kind of led to another, and pretty soon it became sort of a, the typical sort of next door stuff where somebody gets upset about something and pretty soon somebody's jumping on their back and everything. Part of it had to do with code enforcement and how there seemed to be a feeling that code enforcement was not proactive on noticing this stuff. And so I jumped in and basically said, they are proactive. I said they're proactive and they're reactive. And I talked a little bit about the changes with the number of staff coming on and things, and the fact that they were out and about in the neighborhoods. I guess where my concern is that there seemed to be a lot of ignorance in this. And I'm not sure and would like to know possibly what is being done to sort of keep the communications in the community as to what's going on, how it's doing, those kinds of things. So if anybody has anything you can jump in with, I'd love to hear it. I don't mind communicating the stuff that code enforcement's doing, but it just seemed like there was a lot of ignorance among the people I was kind of talking with.
Yeah, that's, I'm sure, a very hot topic, especially with the recent changes of waste management, changing the way they do pickups, dropping alley service. I'm sure there's a lot of people who never previously had to put cans on the street dealing with that, combined with snow, etc. I think that, this is certainly worth probably multiple directions on our part. One being discussion, which I would definitely feel better going in depth on it with code manager Lewis in participation with the discussion, because he'll be able to inform us about what they can and can't do, what they are and are not doing, from a code enforcement perspective. But I think this also warrants, one of our our main communication tools is that quarterly Inglewood magazine, which we do have some real estate to post topics in, and that's what our communications subcommittee is all about, is coordinating with city staff to figure out what articles we're going to put in there, what topics we're going to put in there, what information we're going to put in there, and then also all the social media that the city's doing. And I would say the change to so many different people's service alone warrants, updated communication to the public. But certainly the issues that you brought up, and I'll try and find that thread and take a look at it too, to be aware of what you saw. But I think that's probably a hot topic for information like you brought up, so that everyone is kind of clear on what the rules are and how they're enforced, et cetera. Both through, now we don't typically engage directly with Nextdoor threads. I've been involved in other committees where a lot of discussion around what we were discussing went on there. And some people got involved, but the city doesn't tend to, at least from my observation. I haven't really been engaged there in quite a while. But I think it's great that you spoke up. Hopefully you weren't harassed or attacked, as I know that can happen on there. So I don't know, any other thought? Oh, go ahead, Councilmember Russell.
Thank you. And I haven't seen the thread. I generally don't do Nextdoor unless people send me the threads. But I will say this, we kept waste management because we don't have an alley anyway. So it didn't impact us. I know a lot of people left, but I'm kind of wondering if our waste management did not pick up. 2 blocks away, they picked up. So between Christmas and New Year's, one of them they picked up on schedule. Then the next one they were supposed to pick up on Saturday, and they didn't pick up till the following Monday. And so some of the problem is with waste management itself. So I don't know if that was, and I think maybe some of the trash cans in the street could be because of the snow. I mean, people had to put their trash cans farther out, perhaps.
Right. And let me clarify if I can about this. It wasn't necessarily the issue of the trash that was front and center. What I saw was more of an issue of people not having a clear understanding of how to engage with code enforcement to follow up. And that's where I kind of stepped in. I did not mention that I was a citizen representative of that committee, believe me. But I did provide links to the city to allow them to see the process to download the app, so that they could get the Anglefix app, as well as where they could go on the website. And I guess where I'm coming from is I'd love to see more of a presence of that on social media on a regular basis, so that hopefully people get a little more educated just when they go on there to see what their options are. This is the first step. The ranting and raving, you're never going to lose. It's just the nature of the beast. But guiding them in ways that we can help them to resolve their issues, I think that's really important in terms of communication.
Good point. And glad to hear that's what you spoke up on, and informing them about how to communicate with code enforcement. Go ahead, Ms. Willis.
So do you want one of the priorities for 2023 to have something to do with communication with the public?
Oh, I think as a general topic, I think that's a good one. Yeah. Communicating with the public, how to communicate with and track requests with code enforcement. Maybe something like that, unless someone has a suggestion on a better wrap up of that concept, because it's not necessarily just about trash. It's more about any code enforcement communication, right?
Right. But what I'll do is I'll have all these written down, and then have them presented at your next meeting.
Perfect. Thank you, Ms. Willis. Did you have your hand up, Member Strom?
Yes. I was just thinking that more like when people in my neighborhood mention things to me, that I usually tell them about the app and how to get onto it and how to get it from the App Store. And then to process their complaint through the city that way.
Good. And that's basically what you did as well.
Yes,
Remember
yes.
Ohio
Well,
Wise,
we're
right?
probably going to have to work with people who don't have smartphones and maybe have a different route for them, maybe something at the O'Malley Center or different senior centers where a lot of people don't have smartphones. Well,
Sure.
or they'll have a different way to communicate, or a phone line or something, but
Unless it's changed, I'm pretty sure you can submit through the website as well. You don't have
Okay.
to have the app.
That's correct. Yeah.
Okay, that's what I thought. Yeah. Because I was actually personally, I was turned off by the app when I installed it because it had a extreme number of basically data streams that I felt were completely unreasonable. So I uninstalled the app rather than allow it to run on my phone. It doesn't need to know where I am. It doesn't need access to my phone records. It doesn't need any of that stuff. If it was a reasonable app, I would install it and use it. But otherwise, I'm going to go through the website. Member Chisholm?
Yeah, I just want to chime in. I think communication should be a priority. And I think one of my impressions in my limited time on this committee, sometimes we have these discussions and we get to a point of, in my mind, so in plain English, what does that mean? What does the code say? Carson, you raised some questions on the dog, getting your dog out of the dog pound. What if it's there 24 hours? What if it's there 2 days? There are different gradations on that. And I never felt that we got a straight answer regarding what does that mean? As an example, if my dog gets picked up and 3 hours later, I pick it up, what penalties, fees, ramifications are there for me? The answer I heard was, we take it case by case. Now, again, if I'm wrong, then it's a communication challenge. But I think we process, we dialogue, we talk about these things. And then in my own mind, after the meeting, if a neighbor came up to me and said, so talk to me about trash removal. Where are we? What's the status? I'd have a hard time answering it. Anything we could do, whether it's in the quarterly magazine or on the app or the website, to distill it down to, in a nutshell, this is what it means. And like in Rick's example, I just guess, I don't know this, but I just guess there were probably people out there saying, in a nutshell, what's it mean? What's going on with codes? What's right? What's wrong? So there's somewhere between sort of the mysticism of the code and then the on the ground reality of what I say to my neighbor. So I think communication should be a priority. And I think that maybe if we could do anything, if we could make it easy for our neighbors to understand in simple terms, this is what this code change means. And here's a number. You can call up code enforcement directly and ask them questions. So I'm in favor of more communication. And I think the challenge is to clarify, some of these codes are in progress. Some of these codes are in concrete. We should say so.
Ms. Willis?
Thank you. So what you're asking for basically is a fact sheet from code enforcement. That might say, if my dog is picked up, what happens? Then they
Thank you.
list what, okay, well, do you want that added as a priority for 2023 to create a fact list?
That's what
would-
I heard, and I like that. I think that's a great idea, Member Chisholm.
Okay.
kind of a top level, like, so we could have a discussion about what are all the things, like, certainly there's a lot of code enforcement that most public never really interfaces. But the topics that the public is most likely to wonder about, engage about, ask about, we could even kind of do like a sampling of what's on Nextdoor, what people are asking about that touches on it, and come up with a list of the thing, like obviously animal enforcement stuff is going to be high on there. Trash, snow, weeds, the things that we hear about the most, the things that, we could even go by the code enforcement report to us that shows what the most incidents, they're touching the public on. We can start with that as our prioritization list of what we communicate about. But I think that is I'm glad that you took it as a fact sheet, because that's kind of what was forming in my head, Ms. Willis, by what Member Chisholm was saying. And I think that's a great idea. I would like to see that on our priorities, and I could see that being a pretty high one.
It does seem to exist already. I just sent the link in the code. So maybe
Okay.
it's more letting people know how to access where it is.
Yeah, and probably reviewing it, maybe updates.
Yeah, or maybe they could also make like I don't know what like a tiny URL, like a more direct link that's, you don't have to click through 3 things, but I literally just put Englewood compliance FAQ and these came up, and they do have it by category already. So yeah, maybe just reviewing it and then maybe that could be what we ask them to communicate in the when I get that contact with the gentleman, maybe we want to start putting it out there that it exists and reminding people it exists.
And more than just a fact sheet, I also heard from what you brought up, Member Chisholm, changes. And I think that, changes that fall under code enforcement, we end up reviewing because, partly because they're brought to our attention or we identify them ourselves. Generally, Code Manager Lewis will tell us about them, or Councilmember Russell when there's discussions going on in City Council. But as changes happen, I think that having a clear communication about what those changes are and how they affect the public, boiling that stuff down and communicating that out, maybe in the same fact sheet, like maybe there's a changes section of it or something like that, that we, communicate about what's changing. Because that's the stuff that, if a rule was one way and then changed to another and and it affects your being enforced upon, then, the sooner the public's aware of it, the better. Member Emmelhines?
Yeah, I just want to kind of add to that. I think that you're right, there is stuff on the website. That's why I pointed people to it. And I think that the quarterly is a good thing too. However, those are fairly passive. Those really aren't reaching out to people. A lot of people never see that stuff. And if you're going to end up, with something which is informational, you're going to want to try to complete the circle and get that information into people's hands. And we're a very, very socially networked group, especially younger generation people. And I think that we need to at least understand what's currently available in terms of online, Facebook stuff and all of that, and see if it's meeting our needs. And I think the idea of going through and saying, hey, what's new? And using that forum as a place to put out the new things, as well as put out the bullet points, as well as put out the FAQs. I think that we need to be doing sort of a more proactive approach to communicating with everybody. It seems to be important to everybody.
Let me have Ms. Willis address. You had some on that? You're muted.
So, yeah, thank you. The city of Englewood has a Facebook page. The communications department takes care of that. I think they're also on Englewood Nextdoor, which would be a good place for this fact sheet to be let out, or for you guys to let the public know that you're having a meeting. Because if you were going to be talking about Council Bill 3 this meeting, it would be on your agenda. And that's the notification to public. The problem is the public doesn't care unless it personally affects them. And by the time it personally affects them, they're mad and it's already probably taken place. So my recommendation to you guys would be someone needs to go meet with the communication department from your advisory committee and find out what they've got available that you guys can use.
And that's what Member Redovit has been starting. And obviously the point of contact has changed on that. And we had a pretty good thing going with former member coordinating with the city on, I know they're on Facebook, Nextdoor, Instagram. I mean, I've seen things related to what we've put out on all of those before. So the channels are there. We just have to utilize them. And I think it's probably been a little bit since we have maximally utilized that. So, and now that there are some changes and, new blood in here with new emphasis, let's make sure we're hitting all the points we want to get out to everyone. Member Chisholm?
Just to add to that, I think all channels are good. So the more the better. A couple points. Nobody cares until it's their problem. Either the garbage is in the front of my house or my dog is gone and I'm getting my dog this afternoon. Then all of a sudden, it's a very salient issue to me. And I want to get answers really fast. So in our communication thinking, I really think our bias should be towards that quick response to the agitated citizen who's upset or concerned about something at the moment. And so anyways, that just has to go into the communication strategy of people don't go look at codes for the fun of it. They're going to look at codes because they're upset about something or they're confused about something. So I think we have to factor that in. The other thing is, I think back to our role, sometimes in some of our discussions where the code says X plus Y, that's fine, easy to understand. And then inevitably, there's this shade of gray zone where, well, what does that mean? Does that mean I can do it or I can't do it? And if the answer is, well, it's up to the department and we'll determine it to our best ability at that time. I don't like that answer. I understand it, but I think citizenry should understand that. So, I mean, just using dogs as an example, I like dogs. I understand it. So in that discussion, part of the answer coming from the department was, well, we take that on a case-by-case basis. That's fine. Tell people that. Because if I'm in that zone of case-by-case basis, I want to know who to call. I want to know the phone number. Because what you're telling me, it's up to me and I have to negotiate with the city, which is fine. But just tell me that. So I'm not accusing anybody of anything, but people can get lost in the code discussion and you can look at these codes and go, I don't know what the heck they're talking about. I don't know whether I can or I can't. But if the answer is, it's up to the discretion of the department, or it's up for us to decide what on a case-by-case basis, I think we should put it out there. I think citizens should know, oh, it behooves me to negotiate. It behooves me to pick up the phone, because if not, I'm going to get lost in the codes. Does that make sense? I mean, am I making sense on that? Or
You're making perfect sense.
Okay.
And I am glad that you picked up on that. I have similar concerns when there's not super prescribed consistent protocols and it is up to discretion, then that also leaves room for potential bias in how things are enforced. And not that I'm accusing our code enforcement of acting in bias, but when there isn't a fixed protocol, then that is a risk when you've got different enforcers and different attitudes of those having something enforced upon them. And I appreciate your point significantly. And I do think that where there is points of discretion on a case-by-case basis, we should be, at the very least, us on the Citizen Code Enforcement Advisory Commission should be clear when that is the case, what it means, how it applies, and it would be ideal to include that type of information clearly in our fact sheet or boiled down way of citizens understanding the rules. I really appreciate your point on that.
Okay, thank you.
Member Redovid?
Yeah, I was just gonna say, I double checked I did email the updated contact about 7 days ago and they haven't replied yet. So if I don't hear from them by the end of this week, I'll call them on Monday and see if I can find a number for them to move that along a little bit.
Okay. Thank you. All right, so I've been taking, Ms. Willis, I've been taking notes generally of what everyone's saying, but I haven't made a new official list yet. What do you have so far?
I have communication with public regarding code enforcement and complaint procedures and creation of a fact sheet.
Should we note on there to review the existing fact sheet first?
The existing fact sheet doesn't really have the type of information that would benefit citizenry. It's just, this is code enforcement, and this is how you get in how you
No,
contact them.
yeah, but then if you go to the submit a service request, there is a breakout by category, it seems, like in the
And-
knowledge base that maybe includes a lot of a lot of code related things, but it's not really labeled as such.
Okay, I can
Well-
go in and get that, and I can attach it to your next agenda.
Yeah, and what I was going to say is these are like top level kind of topics that we'll be prioritizing looking into. So just having the word fact sheet is enough for when we address that. We'll first, of course, take into account everything that exists in our discussion, you know, whenever that comes up in our priorities. And then looking at, unless anyone else has any other new ones to bring up right now, I'll kind of talk through what I know on the ones from last year. So I've already noted that we've pretty much completed the trees project. The dangerous dog code, we have put in a lot of input, and then that has been, that's in the works in the city, and will probably come back to us for additional review. Let's see, committee guidelines for communication with the community. So we already even had that as a priority, and we have reiterated that. The update alley weeds ordinance, I think we might have reviewed one change to that. That was a very simple word change that was originally brought up by Council Member Woodward. I don't know that we've done anything else on that. Ms. Willis, are you aware of anything outstanding on that's kind of up in the air on that, or Councilmember Russell?
I am not.
Okay.
I am not either.
Okay. Yeah, I'm not sure if there was anything left for us to look on that. Title 15 vehicles on maximum, or vehicles or maximum number of vehicles per household. I mean, that's specifically in that was something that went through like a ballot initiative, if I remember right. So it's actually written into our code, including whether the vehicle has to be covered or not, stuff like that. That was like there was a whole ballot initiative that was brought up quite a while back and passed. So I'm not sure if this was do either of you know why that's even in our priorities? Our priorities, I worked on it as part of the committee, but it was mainly our former chair who was the strongest influence on what these were. And so I'm not really sure what we were addressing with that one. Does anyone know?
I believe that you had Code Manager Lewis come in and tell you all about how that was a citizen initiative and that it was written in code. And I seem to recall that he stated there was nothing that could be done with that.
Okay, then that's why that's in my head. I mean, I remember when it was on the ballot a long time ago. And then I guess that's what I'm remembering, is him telling us there wasn't really anything we could do. So we might as well remove that from our new one. When we speak to Code Manager Lewis next time, we can ask him if there's anything that he's aware of that we need to address regarding alley weeds. And please, anyone speak up if you have any of these, points or thoughts on these topics, or of course, any new topics. Scooters, I'm not aware of us bringing this up. This may be something that, is council still making changes on scooter rules or any of that right now, Member Russell?
It really has not come forward. I know occasionally I see scooters sitting around, but council really has not dealt with that.
Okay.
So,
am I right in thinking that there's some limitation on them even being in Inglewood? I live right off of Yale, and I see a lot of them just sitting on Yale, like they turn off when they cross that street.
right,
That's
think
the
they
impression
have
I
to-
get because of how many are abandoned there.
right. A lot of them end up on Dartmouth also.
Okay.
But no, council hasn't taken that up.
Okay. And then, so review process for trash removal after recommendation from trash committee. That I'm very familiar with because I was on the trash committee. And our recommendation went to council, and council decided not to act further on the, the possibility of, well, they didn't act on our recommendation. Our recommendation was that they'd negotiate more directly with the haulers to see if they could get all the points that we gathered from citizens that were most important to include in a single hauler system, that the haulers had rejected from the request for proposal. But this was written in here after or prior to the result of that committee making a recommendation to council and council making a decision on how they were going to move forward. So we were thinking that once council made a decision that we would have to review code changes to accommodate that. But at this point, there really hasn't been any change from the city side. There's only been change from the hauler side. This big change recently where Waste Management has stopped providing alley service. And it's not really clear to me if Republic is still offering alley service to people who don't already have it. We know that they are still servicing the alleys, but it's not clear to me if that's something that they're offering to new or switched customers. Member Russell?
The one thing that I do know, when the letter came out from Waste Management, a lot of people did call Republic. And even though during the time that all the discussions were going on, Republic was not taking any new customers in the alley, but they have picked up people that want alley pickup. So that is out there. The other thing that is going on is council asked the city manager and his staff to reach out to, there's a lot of companies that are out there, but to reach out to them and ask them to apply for licenses in the city of Inglewood.
Okay.
So I believe he's doing that at council's request.
And I know from my own research on the trash committee, there's a company that is growing. They do offer residential, and hardly anyone's heard of them, but the Little Dumpsters is expanding into Inglewood from the south, is my understanding. They do a lot of service in like Centennial. So that's another potential option. I don't know about if they offer alley service or not. And then, but we all know that, for the reasons already stated, that trash is definitely going to be a topic that we'll delve further into, since it's a code enforcement issue regardless of what's going on with the available services. Animal licensing, as far as I'm aware, is not something being considered at this point. It was originally considered as part of the potential attempt to reduce use of our off-leash parks by people who don't live in the city. But Code Manager Lewis, in his talks about that, has de-emphasized it. At least that's my understanding, that that's not something that's currently on the table or being pushed forward. But certainly, if it were to be, then that would be a discussion that we would take on. Our bylaws we already took care of. We will have chair and vice chair election. And is that again March this year? Do we always do? I forget what that is in our bylaws. Ms. Willis, do you remember?
I don't.
Okay, so we'll just have to review the bylaws to make sure we do our election for chair and vice chair appropriately. And then, so Title VII, public safety. Okay, we've already done a lot of work on that. So we have, some of you were on while we reviewed all the changes for some of the language in the way the code was very specific to like dog and cat. And there were situations where Code Manager Lewis and his team were unable to appropriately enforce like animal cruelty to like a lizard. So that has been addressed. Code's been updated. That was one of the things we worked on last year. And I'm not aware of anything left on that. I think that's all been moved all the way through into code, those changes. And then our media plan was the types of things we're talking about with public communication. We did have last year more engagement because the city has ramped up their social media stuff, and there was a lot more social media posts on Facebook and Instagram and things like that for topics, some of which were related to our topics, but we're working to get that going again. Member Redovit and Vice Chair Watson, once he's back with us, are doing the subcommittee. So how about anything else? Is anyone else aware of any specific topics, anything other than what we've already talked about, that, aspects of the code or things that the constituents, other fellow citizens are aware of or bringing up or concerned about? Well, we can always revise this. Maybe what we'll do is, what I would like to suggest is, between Ms. Willis and I will turn what we've gone over into a list for our agenda for next time, and then let's have part of our discussion next time to be actually to prioritize them, and then we'll include them in our agenda for discussion items based on our prioritization. But I think it'll help to have kind of a refined list of everything we've just talked about, and then we can refine it further when we discuss. But then let's have one of our goals of our next meeting to actually prioritize what we'll be focused on over the next year. And certainly other things will come up as code changes are addressed by council and as Code Manager Lewis brings things to us. Plus next week or next month when he's back, he may have other topics that he would like us to consider in our priorities as well. And then we'll actually do we can vote down a priority order. Any other thoughts on this for now? Okay, thanks everyone for your thoughts and ideas on that. I think that's a lot of good stuff. And I really like the emphasis on the communication, especially as some things are changing. And we know there's topics that the public is not necessarily clear on. We don't really have any unfinished business right now. I've kind of pointed out we'll finish our prioritization next time. And then we also are going to have in the next agenda proposed changes about this was brought up from Code Manager Lewis and City Attorney Niles. And I believe it was part of a discussion by City Council, but this is not is this within what is going to be second hearing on the 6th, the re-inspection fee, or is that separate from that?
No, that's separate from that. And I did speak with the city attorney last night, and she looked for me because I looked for quite a while and couldn't find it. She believes it's on the meeting on November 7th. So I will go back and listen to that meeting on November 7th. And so it is possible it's already been passed. So, but I
Well,
don't
that's not the
remember.
impression I got from Code Manager Lewis, because we were going to discuss it today. And then when he said he wouldn't be able to be here, I wrote to him and City Attorney Niles, who had expressed that it wasn't an urgent thing, that I let them know we'll just put it on our next meeting, and neither of them suggested that that would be a problem at all. City Attorney Niles said this is the way it is the way it's been for a long time. So
Right,
potentially
and-
changing it would be a
and-
new thing and not urgent.
Right, and I mean, it could have been in the study session, I don't remember. But if and I don't think Code Manager Lewis would have brought it forward if it doesn't need to be acted on at some point. I mean, if it already had been. So I'm
Right.
assuming that we didn't. So it's possible that it was in a study session. And
So
maybe.
for every,
Go ahead.
sorry.
No, that's okay, go ahead.
Just so for the rest of you to know what we're talking about, it's around adding a new fee for if someone has a code enforcement interaction on their property and code enforcement has to go and inspect the follow-up that they took care of it, and that happens more than one redo per year, they want to charge a fee for that. So I think it needs further discussion, because there's some ambiguity in what I read about it. And I didn't want us to try and discuss it in detail without Code Manager Lewis. So that's why I bumped it to the next meeting, so that we'll have him to go over it in detail with us from his perspective as the code manager. And then if we have any questions to ask City Attorney Niles on it, we can. But we'll include in the agenda the proposed changes, and that way we can talk with him about it next time. So that'll be our main new business next time, and then we'll follow that up with refining our priorities and ordering them. And unless anyone else has anything else to add, but those are the things I'm aware of right now that we have on our table to address. And for our next meeting, going with our standard date, that would be February 15th at 6 p.m. And this one will, since we were going to do the quarterly in person, we'll make that one in person since we switched this one to Zoom. And then, Member Russell, do you have anything else for us?
I do not.
Does any member have anything else? Okay, thank you all very much. Good discussion and good topics, and we'll get it further refined in our next meeting and sort out our priority. Thank you all. Have a great month.
Night.
Great meeting, thank
Night.
you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.